So I have to choose. You know, contacts out later. I saw it. Would you take Alexis? Somewhere else. No, I have a contact. I have to. Scratch your eye. I've scratched my eye before. Yeah, we went, didn't have any eye problems, so. I remember the eye doctor saying, yeah, you cut your eye. She said, look, your eye is your fastest healing organ. Well, mine was. Yeah, but it's probably because something. They gave me some eye drops and it says eye drops, and I was like, oh, but scratched it.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I've got several little announcements. I've got several little announcements to make. Things to remind us of. Tonight is the last night to sign up for the brunch and flower arranging. If you want to do that, that's on the app. The app, whatever. Breeze and not Breeze, but Linktree. Yeah. Not that Danny doesn't mention it enough. Remember. Easter eggs. They're still needing Easter eggs. If you want to bring those for Easter. I'm going to send around, Megan mentioned it out there, this Arlington Elementary test proctoring, and there's lots of sheets, so don't just assume the first one. They're needing like 30 a day, I think she said, and we can help them with that. So if you can do that, the times are on here, the date's on here, and she said all you have to do is be in there, read the instructions, and keep the kids quiet. You don't sit there, you don't read anything, okay? So they need some help, so I'm going to send that around, and if you can help, please do that. Send it that way. And then also the family breakfast that's for the youth group, they're needing some people to sign up there to help with food. Probably nobody in here is invited to eat. Maybe Angie, and maybe one or two. Most of us aren't, but they're needing some food. So if you'd like to sign up for that, help them out with that. Okay, so let's go to God in prayer, and then we'll turn it over to Theresa. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you that we can gather tonight. Thank you for the beautiful weather in the spring season. Thank you for protecting us and taking care of us, and we ask that you help us to help those who have lost their homes and have had damage during all the flooding and the tornadoes, and we just ask that we be your hands and feet. Thank you for this time that we can study your word. Help us to have open hearts and open minds and apply the things that we hear to our lives, and then help us lead here in Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Y'all doing tonight? Good.
So we are on page 116 tonight. That's where we're starting. I appreciate Amy for me like that. Do y'all have this stuff that just will not let go of you? Yeah. Okay. So we find ourselves, or I guess Esther and Mordecai find themselves between two banquets right now. Okay, when we're picking up in the story tonight. So it's one of those spots where Esther, Mordecai, Jewish people, They have no control over what's happening to them, none whatsoever. Esther finds herself in a position where she's told to speak up. You know, you're in a position where something can happen. I need you to, God needed her to do some things for him, for the people, to save the people. So she's in a spot where she can have some influence, but doesn't know exactly how that's going to happen. So she truly is in waiting. Okay, she's had the first banquet, lured everybody in, lured Haman back in to think he's all that. So he's going to come back to the second banquet, but they're in that time of waiting where we find ourselves a lot. Okay, where sometimes we know there's an outcome, there's a time that things are going to come to a climax. Okay, there's going to be a turn of events, but we have no way of impacting that at all. And I know you've been in situations like that. I've become better. I certainly don't have it perfected, but I've become better at waiting during those times. Because when I was younger, I gotta do something. We gotta do something. We gotta figure that out. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And then I would end up jumping in and sort of messing up that, right? So I think the more we live, the more experiences we have, the more we see God's got this under control. He's going to take care of it. He doesn't need my help. Okay? So that's where Esther is. She's in waiting. And what we're going to look at this first little bit, the first lesson, a lot of action is going to take place, but it's going to have nothing to do with Esther. It's going to have, she's going to have no knowledge of what's going on. Neither will Mordecai, neither will the Jewish people, but a lot of events are going to begin to fall into place for God's plan. And it's so neat to sit back and see all that happen. And it's totally his effort. Okay, there's absolutely no human effort in it at all. Okay? Trust that takes is immense, right? Trust that it takes on Esther's part to trust in God that things are going to work out, and not attempt to do something. I was talking about the fate of the whole people, right? You're talking about the fate of the entire Jewish people. So, beginning of page 116, we're brought back into the story at Esther 6, chapter 6, verse 1 through 2. That same night, the king could not sleep, so he gave an order for the daily court record to be brought in and read to him. It was found reported that Mordecai had warned the king about Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway and who had planned to kill the king. The king asked what honor and reward had been given to Mordecai for this. Now, this is in the middle of the night. He can't sleep. Okay, what a odd thing to have done, I would think. I mean, I can see waking up in the middle of the night, you can't go back to sleep and you do yourself, but I'm not a king. I don't have anybody or a queen. I don't have anybody to read to me. So maybe that's sort of the equivalent, okay? He's going to have somebody read to him. But then it triggers something in his mind, and he's like, okay, Mordecai did this really great thing for me. He saved my life. He intervened, and we were able to put an end to this fight. So what's been done? And then he's told by the personal servant, they answered, nothing has been done for Mordecai. The king said, who is in the courtyard? Now Haman had just entered the courtyard, the outer court of the king's palace. Okay, just so happened, right? Okay, remember God is all over the place, right? In the book of Esther, just his name is not. Okay, and also a lot of irony is all over Esther. Okay, we begin to see that come into play in chapter 6. Haman had come to ask the king about hanging Mordecai on the platform that he had prepared. Remember, he had gone whining back to the house to his wife, right, Zeresh, and all of his friends about how terrible things were that Mordecai would not bow down to him. And everything else in the world was just his cherry, right? But Mordecai was the thorn in his flesh. So he's gone home and gotten some encouragement, the negative kind, right? And so he's all big and puffed up, and he's ready to come in and ask the king you know, let's hang this guy. Let's get rid of it. The king's personal servants said, Haman is standing in the courtyard. The king said, bring him in. So Haman came in, and the king asked him, what should be done for a man whom the king wants very much to honor? Now, I can just sort of envision Haman's chest just inflating. Can't you? Just puffing up. Yeah, well, you know, and so he's like, okay, well, I can help you with that. So he answered the king, this is what you could do for the man you want to very much to honor. Have the servants bring a royal robe that the king himself has worn, and also bring a horse with a royal crown on its head, a horse that the king himself had ridden. Let the robe and the horse be given to the king's most important men. Let the servants put the robe on the man the king wants to honor, and let them lead him on the horse through the city streets. As they are leading him, let them announce, this is what is done for the man whom the king wants to honor. So that's pretty bold, isn't it? Okay, and very, very, very puffed up with pride. And we see these highs and lows of Haman. Okay, he thinks he's at a high, and he is about himself, right? He's very high on himself, but he's about to be totally deflated, right? So that's the irony, sort of the swing of events that begins to happen. Verse 10 says, the king commanded Haman, go quickly, take the robe and the horse, just as you said, and do all this for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not leave out anything you have suggested. And you can just sort of feel all that air leaving out of his chest, right? Okay? So the air goes out, and I'm sure the red of the embarrassment and the anger goes up. Here he finds himself in a place of honoring the very man that he detests, totally detests. So on 116 and 117, she takes us through a few little questions about that. But I do want us to go back through top of page 117 on exactly what all the king, Haman recommended that the king do for this person. So verse 8a says what? What's the suggestion there?
King's
Okay, right, and not just any robe, right? The king, one that the king has worn himself. Okay, so robe from the king. Okay, and 8b says, okay, a horse that the king had ridden, right? One that he had ridden, and what's going to be on the horse's head? The crown. Okay, and then verse 9a, the A part.
one of the king's notes.
Yes, so somebody of very high esteem will be the one who bestows this robe and this crown on Mordecai. So, you know, and then 9b says, and lead the horse through the town. So someone highly thought of in the kingdom will be adorning Mordecai with all of this and leading the town. And then verse 9c says, this is what is done for the man the king wants to honor. Okay, so Haman thought he was planning his own ceremony of honor when detailing his vision to the king. So his whole little ceremony goes to his arch enemy, right? Okay, the very person that he does not want to honor, person that he wants annihilated, eliminate, and not just he hates him so much, he doesn't want just Mordecai to be eliminated. He wants every Jew, everyone that has any part to do with Haman. Okay, so what do you imagine Haman thought he could gain from all of these? He thought it was him, the robe and the crown and the horse and going through town. I mean, he seemed to have everything, right? He was the second in command. He was still favored in the king's eyes at this point. He was wealthy. He had a family. So what is it that he's hoping to gain by all this?
Does it go from pride and for him? But if I pick what the sermon, I can't say the same.
Went to Mordecai? He did. But what was Haman trying to gain from that?
Attention.
Attention.
Recognition.
Right. Recognition. definition, attention, recognition, glory, Tammy said, all of those things. So he had physical things. He wanted more. He wasn't satisfied. Okay? So he didn't want to just have all those things. He wanted everybody else to know he had those things and that he was highly thought of and he was. So it was very much a pride thing. And pride is a scary thing because it's just rough, isn't it? It's rough when it crashes on the other side. Okay, so prestige, power, maybe respect, maybe he wanted to be so lots of those things. Now, I like how she brought in the passage from 1 Samuel 18, verse 1 to 5. So if y'all 1 Samuel 18 through 5. I'd like to read.
After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well.
Now, I don't think, when I've read that before, I don't think I've realized the significance of the fact that Jonathan gave his robe and armor, his sword, he gave all of that to David. Now, David was going into war, but what is that symbolic of? Honor.
He was the king's son, and to bestow that upon David showed that considered him like an
So wearing all of these things, just like Haman wanting to wear all these things, it's a symbol of, okay, I'm next in line. Okay, and that's another thing Haman did. He wanted all of it. He wanted the king, he wanted the kingdom, he wanted the whole 9 yards. So to have crown and the horse and the robe was a symbol. Okay? It was signifying to people, I'm next. I'm next in line. And that really is driven home to me when I think about what Jonathan did. Okay? Not only was he attempting to protect his friend as he went into battle, but he was saying, you know, we are the same, just like Amy said. Okay? And of course, at this point, hadn't David already married Saul's daughter by that point? Okay, so biologically, they're not the same, but Jonathan is saying they are, okay, and because he loved him so much, that friendship too. Okay, so having all these things signified that one day that person might actually be king. Okay, Kelly's definition of God's sovereignty, she says it's God's rule and reign over every part of his creation, particular in the lives of his people, to bring about his ultimate will in all things. And that's what we're seeing happening during the waiting period between these two banquets, is we're seeing God's sovereignty. We're seeing his will being carried out. Okay, things that mere humans could not do. Okay, you know, without God's power, none of this could happen. And he's not even requiring anybody to do it. He's working his own will. So what stands out most to you about evidence of God's sovereignty in today's passage? And that's the Esther passage. What stands out most to you about God's sovereignty?
Haman being right where it needed to be that exact moment the king was ready to ask this question.
Okay.
That was the exact passage that they read. You know, they had to turn to that page in the book. You know,
Just happened to not be able to sleep. Just happened to have the records read to him. Haman just happened to be there. And I may be taking this a step too far, but to me, the sovereignty of God is played out not only in the elevation of Mordecai, but and also the downfall of Haman. Okay, that you can't have that much pride go unchecked. So in one fell swoop, the places, they've completely changed places.
And the timeline of this, it kind of boggles my mind too, because he's obviously trying to go to sleep. Is it nighttime? And they're reading to him, and then Haman's so eager to get rid of Mordecai, he comes in at night. It just happens to be in the court then. It's not like he's bopping in the beginning of the day to start his day. He's coming in at the night. And so, what?
There he is. There is the God's fingerprints are all over. Okay, if there's anything I'm missing on page 118, and I spilled some chocolate milk. And that stuff's sticky, and I didn't realize it. And so I ripped guts out of that pretty well. So there's something on there that talks about or mentions again how Esther and Mordecai are not direct participants in this turn of events. They didn't have any input into the fact Haman just happened to be there. The part of that was reread was the part that was Mordecai. It wasn't like they'd gone in and stuck a mark in and been like.
And the fact he even asked for that. Who would ask for that? I would ask for lots of things other than that to be read, while I'm trying to go to sleep. Why ask for that? I think that's so interesting.
Maybe it puts you to sleep.
Yeah.
Boring stuff.
It's so boring.
She also makes the point that God does his best work when both of them are off the radar. I can't read what it actually says, but it does his best work when both of them are absent. Okay, they are. Thank you. Okay, and then I got one more big hole here soon, and then we should be okay. Okay. So what does this part of Esther's story tell you about God's sovereign activity in your life? How does it apply to you, even when you're absent or powerless to affect your situation?
He doesn't need us. He doesn't need our input. I mean, we overestimate what, our own, we overestimate ourselves sometimes. If I don't do it,
Sometimes we can just get wet and just mess stuff up, right? Make it worse than it was. Okay, so he's always working, whether we see it or not, and whether we ever even know about it or not. You just have to stop and think about, what are all the things that I've been saved from that I'm not even, what has God shielded me and protected me and guarded me from that I don't even know? Yes.
And I think, Teresa, we should honor him when we see it, and speak about it. We're too quiet about this.
Call it out. In the good. I agree. But that's just being a witness for Jesus. Okay? And it's a blessing to other people. They can see, yes, Jesus is a part of my life and he's active. Okay. So waiting and powerlessness seem to go hand in hand, but we can be assured that God governs. Okay, we're on page 121. Read 1 Peter 5:6-7. If somebody would read that, just read it right off at 1 second.
Humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you at the proper time, casting all your cares on him, because he cares about you.
Humble yourself. How can that look? What are some different ways that humbling yourself can look?
Sometimes it looks like not learning. I'm learning. It's faith, and you realize you've got to. I don't have understanding. You don't know what to do. Don't do nothing.
That's good. And I think too, just admitting, I don't have a clue. I'm supposed to, I don't have a clue, but I do know that my God is in charge and that he's gonna take care of all this. And I can go lay my head down. And that's hard to do. And I think it took me a long, long time to get that. So, okay. So, page 122, this is the 5th day, the end of the wicked. So this is where all the clashing sort of begins. This is where everything begins to be turned upside down and everything, all the irony comes into play. Okay? Whereas Haman thought he was great. It's great, right? Down on Mordecai becomes the great. So Esther 6, verse 11 through 14. Esther 6. Who would like to read that?
So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the streets, proclaiming before him, "This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor." Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief, Zeresh his wife, and all his friends, and everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, "Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him, and he will surely come to ruin." And while they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had.
Now these were all the same. He keeps running home, right? He runs home with his tail between her, runs home with his tail between his legs. Okay, so, but he's running home to a really different crowd, right? The same people, but at first they're going, you do this. And they're like, you're coming up against the Jews. Don't you know? You know that. Okay, you know about from way, way, way back. Okay, some of the questions that she asks at the bottom of page 122 says, contrast Mordecai's actions in Esther 4:1. This was when he was at the gate and he learned that people were going to be destroyed. So contrast Mordecai's fortunes in Esther 4:1 with his fortunes in 6:11.
Sackcloth and ashes now they were in the king's robe.
So he went from ashes to riches, okay? Okay, total flip. Okay, contrast Mordecai's actions in Esther 4:1 and Haman's actions in 6:12. So let's go back and look at 1. This is Mordecai's actions. When Mordecai heard about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on rough cloth and ashes, and went out into the city, crying loudly and painfully. Was he trying to hide anything? No, he wasn't trying to hide anything. What about Haman?
He was.
He was being stinky. Okay.
Sneaky.
Sneaky and stinky. Okay. And so when you look in verse 12, it says he hurried home with his head covered because he was embarrassed and ashamed. So 2 very different reactions. Okay. What do you think is the cause of their different reactions? Two very desperate and possibly humiliating situations.
One, he had to lead the horse through the sea.
See, that's for another man.
He didn't get what he wanted. Just pitied himself. I was thinking about himself. His focus was.
And that seed of pride is so deep in Haman's heart to, things not be going his way. So instead of reaching out to his God and reaching out around him and being very open about that, he wants to hide, be in shame and embarrassment and run home. Okay, whereas Mordecai, on the other hand, he's anguished. He's anguished and he's letting everybody know about it. He's in a position where he can't do anything, okay, to change his fate. So he's very open and very humble about it. Okay, so after Haman paraded Mordecai through the city square, where did he go? So Haman's fortunes were dramatically changing in light of Mordecai's Jewishness. Okay, Jewishness. So, and we remember the history there. It's at the very end of this lesson. How remember that from earlier in our study that Mordecai descended from King Saul of Israel, and Haman from King Agag of the Amalekites. So the history of the Israelites and the Amalekites way back, okay, and the just cruelty of King Agag towards David and his men, right? So, excuse me, towards God and his people. Y'all jump. Me too. Okay. So, they must have knowledge of God's remarkable preservation of the Jewish people. This is when Haman's people start to abandon him. We see that this fair weather begins. Okay, she inserts the psalm here. Psalm 17. I'm sorry, Psalm 73. And I want to read this to you. And it sort of sounds like a conversation maybe you have with yourself sometimes. You ever have those conversations with yourself? You're like, and then you sort of catch your breath, calm yourself down, and come down on the other side of the situation. Okay. So, God is truly God. God is truly good to Israel, to those who have pure hearts. But I had almost stopped believing. I had lost my faith because I was jealous of proud people. I saw wicked people doing well. They're not suffering. They're healthy and strong. They don't have problems like the rest of us. They don't have problems like other people. They wear pride like a necklace and put on violence as their clothing. They're looking for profits and do not control their selfish desires. They make fun of others and speak evil. Proudly they speak of hurting others. They brag to the sky. They say that they own the earth. So their people turn to them and give them whatever they want. They say, how can God know? What does God Most High know? These people are wicked, always at ease, and getting richer. So why have I kept my heart pure? Why have I kept my hands from doing wrong? I have suffered all day long. I've been punished every morning. God, if I decided to talk like this, I would have, Lord, if I decided to talk like this, I would have let your people down. So verses 1 through 14, it's where he's sort of having a conversation with himself, looking at other people. Here's all these evil people. They're getting everything they want. Woe is me. Da, 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 da. Then he stops himself. God, if I had decided to talk out loud instead of talking to myself like this, I would have let your people down. I tried to understand all this, but it was too hard for me to see until I went to the temple of God. I used to, you ever been vacuuming and something hits you and makes you mad? Y'all never do that? Okay. Maybe not much. Too many more. But I remember I could just get to
Mom would always dish it.
after vacuuming, then I would be like, girl, damn it. Okay, so sometimes we get in our head and we go these crazy places, and I think that's what Asaph, I think that was his name. Yeah, I think that's what he's doing. He's got in his head, he's got himself all worked up in this really bad spot. He's like, I can't go around talking like that. I better put that in my head, vacuum that carpet. Okay, I better do that, because if I said all this out loud, that would be the influence it might have on other people. So he says, I tried to understand. It was too hard for me to see until I went to the temple of God. So this is the turning point. Then I understood what will happen to them. You have put them in danger. You caused them to be destroyed. They are destroyed in a moment. They are swept away by terrors. It will be like waking from a dream. Lord, when you rise up, they will disappear. When my heart was sad and I was angry, I was senseless and stupid. I acted like an animal towards you. But I'm always with you. You have held my hand. You guide me with your advice, and later you will receive me in honor. I have no one in heaven but you. I want nothing on earth besides you. My body and my mind may become weak, but God is my strength. He is mine forever. Those who are far from God will die. You destroy those who are unfaithful. but I am close to God, and that is good. The Lord God is my protection. I will tell all that you have done. So it's so nice to go to the book of Psalms and be able to see all the different folks who have written there and their range of emotion, okay? And seeing that he'd gotten himself all wound up. Don't you know Mordecai had been all wound up, okay? Trying to serve God, trying to do the right thing, taking Esther in as an orphan, raising her as his own, and now all of a sudden, because this one guy doesn't like him, all of his people are going to be wiped out. Okay? And then he backs himself down. But that whole turning point was, until I went to the temple of God. Now, that literally means he went to the temple. That's good, but it could also just mean I went into your word. I went into you, okay, into your presence, okay, and realized all the promises, all the everything that you have, and that people who are doing these things, it may seem like everything's going well, but in the end, I thought that was a really neat thing to observe. Okay. So when you get yourself in those wound spots, how do you get yourself?
Usually Jamie comes home and talks with him. He's good at that.
But you had to share that with him, right?
Yeah.
You had to share it with him. And so you were humble enough to share it with him and to receive his guidance, right? So you turned to someone godly, someone wise, whereas Haman is turned into, okay? He didn't get good counsel. Right, his wife. He didn't get good counsel, did he? Okay? So we're all going to get ourselves wound up in those spots, okay? Things seem unfair. Okay, but turning to others of wise counsel is something for us to do, okay? Turning to God, most definitely. Okay. Esther 6:13.
Okay.
Esther chapter 6, verse 13.
And Haman told his wife, Zeresh, is that right?
Mine says
Zeresh, sorry. Anyway, my glass. And Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him. Then his wise men and his wife Zeresh said, if Mordecai, before whom you have called, of the Jewish people, will not overcome him, surely.
Now, these are words coming out of someone who is not a God father, right? Okay, so even people who do not believe in God recognize or worship God, recognize the power that is with the Jewish people, the power of their God. She goes on to mention on page 125 other people that we encounter, just like Rahab. Okay? Rahab was not the children of Israel, okay, but she recognized the hand of God on the Jewish people, okay, and she helped them in their time. Nebuchadnezzar, right? He bowed down to Daniel, okay? He was not a follower, okay? He wasn't a believer in God, but he did, okay, one, because of Daniel and the things that God did through Daniel. So his mercy hangs on his righteous acts towards us, not our moral choices. Mordecai was clothed in the king's royal robes, and actually identified him with the king's power and position. We too have been given a royal inheritance, though ours is eternal. So we're much in the same position. Okay. And there will be times where it seems that those around us that are things, that they are prospering. Okay, things are going well for them. Okay, well maybe things are not going so well for me or for you. Okay, but we do know the promises of God. We have to keep those in front of us constantly, day after day. Okay, hour after hour sometimes. Okay, so 1 Peter 1, 3 through 10.
Praise be to God the Father of the Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, fade, kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be fulfilled in the last time. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have to suffer grief and all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, honor, when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. For you are receiving the gold of the salvation of your soul. Concerning salvation, the prophets who spoke the grace that was to come to you searched intently with the greatest care.
So read back through that on your own and look for the different promises that you're guaranteed in Christ. Any promises you see. What's one promise you saw there?
Place,
What?
plant,
Blessings, okay, the blessings of God. Promise that.
Priceless inheritance.
Okay, priceless inheritance.
New birth,
I'm sorry.
a new birth.
Okay, a new birth. The salvation of our soul.
Right.
Healed by God.
Grace. I'll just read mine because it's a different version. We all had different versions. But I know you'll recognize all these because you've said them all. A living hope, that confident expectation. No matter what happens, I know I have my hope. The living hope, blessings of God, the protection of our salvation through our faith, a joy that cannot be explained, the salvation of our souls, and grace. Now that is medicine and comfort for our souls at all times, but it rings even more true when we're in those difficult times, where those things don't seem to be playing out in our present reality, right? It's going right in front of our face, does not go along, it's not matching up, okay? We know we have these promises, okay? And in the end, these are all the things that we'll receive. Okay, what encouragement do you find to persevere through trials, knowing that your future is secure and certain?
verse 8. Though you've not seen him, love him. Even though you do not see him now, believe it and feel inexpressible, glorious joy. It's just a lot of encouragement there. It's just not something only God can do.
To take our eyes off of the present and look to the future, look to that confident, and secure future we have. So the rest of her lesson was just filled with lots of encouragement about keeping our eyes on goal and keeping our eyes on God's purposes. So what's ministered to you most about this week that's taken place in 22 months? Ministers to you most?
Haman probably was a very talented person, or he would not have got to where Mordecai, he was kind of a regular guy, you know, and just reinforces to me that God works through a lot of times the most unlikely person. Or, you know, it's not necessarily the person we would expect to make a huge difference, but he works in the unexpected.
Esther played an important role, but I love the idea of what happened in between the two banquets. You know, she did the banquet, and she did the other banquet, but the stuff that happened between the two, like that was, you know, we all have things that we should do, can do, and will, but it's not all up to us. I like that. That encourages me.
And that word secure, that's so important. You know, reaching that point in your walk, begin to not just know that in your head, heard that, read that, you begin to feel that in your heart as you're secure in Christ. That's just a thing. So I think it's just cool that Esther and Mordecai don't have to know what's going on. All the good stuff, they don't have a clue what's going on, right? That's all I have. Does anybody have she want to share?
So next week we'll watch the video on this section, and then I think we just have 2 more, right? Yes. Well, it seems like it's taking us a long time. We're gonna finally wrap it up.
Do we have class in the summer, or?
No, in the summer we usually do out there, and I've not heard anyone said. You may already know that. I'm sure he knows
I
about
bet he does.
next year.
Yeah.
I know.
Surprise. Yeah. She had been talking to Ashley, and she was coming to see Scott. Doing both of them at time, so she came. Yeah. Tacos for yeah. She's doing okay. I was telling him she's kind of
On something. Well, I know he has put down on something and it broke it off.
I think she's needing some encouragement. I asked her. Because, you know, they
Yeah, we're gonna have to
just one time church and not long enough to really make friends. Yes, so she was isolated there, so. Yes, yeah. She just asked us to kind of all stay in contact, so, yes. Yeah, that'd be great. But she can't always text back, it's hard for her to. I know that one. Way up there. I love Does she get like oh, they come that way. So they do come there and they do. That kind of made me feel better. Yeah, he's gonna be, yeah, to be patient, to learn something. So he's, they probably do so much. It'll be different. Well, it's because he needs to go out together because they can today and they can clean it a little better. So I'm sure they struggle. I mean, it's not like they're not, but I'm bet it's yeah. And that could be, well, that could be, he doesn't know. Well, it's like, either both, yes. And I would think it's kind of like his body needs the calcium, and so it's, yeah, it's probably coolest wherever it can find it, because the calcium level is low.
Kevin's supposed to, her husband's
Your
supposed to,
blood
I guess it's
level calciums are too low, your body pulls it from other
coming
places
tomorrow.
because you can't handle the, you know, and it he's
I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really good, as long as Adam says, it's very particular, it's just, I think they're doing
Yeah,
so much.
he's probably on a buy, and I would think, you know, much about it. I would think he was serious about it. I need to call him. You can just say, I need to call him. Well, no, I don't. He can talk. Some medication that could be causing his calcium to be low. It's not that they're not feeding him calcium, or he's not having to get out. Drink the milk, right? And that's fine. And it may be like he's on medication. That is a side effect of medication is it pulls the calcium low. I mean, it's a low dose.
Okay, 6 months down the
Yeah.
road. Well, or she may have
Maybe, like, see, that's something, I mean, when you.
They did keep several going at the same time, like she was doing ours and Adam had a house right across Parkway, she was doing it, so she would do ours and go over there and do some
And,
stuff.
and, I mean, it may not be what he's eating, it's just the
I need
medication
something finished.
start causing other issues, but he needs the medicine, so it's like, it's a catch-22, yeah.
Yeah.
But, well, I don't know, I guess. Yeah, that's true, I didn't
I know.
No, that'd just be another thing, then you'd have to deal with insurance, or would you just,
Yeah, I don't, well, he's got one too, but we noticed that he was missing like last. And it was fall, and they had noticed it, and many of the folks, the dentist, not sure. But I've only seen.
I mean, there's one thing it won't, like,
what is it, I think
That's so frustrating.
he just makes them so agitated that he can't get,
I've been trying to put on my eyes, get home, I may try it on.
there's only so much you can do with someone when they're that agitated. You can throw them. You know, and that's what sedation industry made.
Sure, they sent to the right place.
Maybe they could
Is
do
this a
something.
hoax?
Maybe
I know.
they could.
Like, I clicked on the wrong thing.
I took away the medication.
He was too,
Yeah, he was like, he kept falling asleep.
he was too drowsy, yeah.
Yeah, technology does that to me quicker than anything else in the world, I
He was
think, it
sleeping
just
in
sets
his
me off.
Makes me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's, otherwise, I think as far as all that goes, he's now. Hoping he's coming back, he's starting to get a cure.
Oh, really? I'm just right.
That's good
But
though.
I thought,
It's a word.
yeah.
Yeah, he knows who you are though. I mean, he can tell. He's like, and because you don't really know what his brain is, you know, you don't know what he's comprehending, or you just don't know. You don't know. You can tell he knows who.
Oh, yeah, he does.
I'm not gonna do.
And I was like, well, we didn't get Shepherd to send it to it, because I kept like, until March. But he's saying, I don't think it's done in some, he had been about things, but it makes it. And so he's been off screen.
He was trying to say. He was trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
and I
it's
could-
$250. And,
Yeah, I'm working there.
and she said, I don't know if
No, that's fine. Hey, I was asking.
then you would
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time, yes, but then,
Yeah, I came in,
up to the
maybe
jail.
Tuesday, or maybe Monday. And then they had.
Did you put your ears in?
Yes.
And we don't know about what
Right. Trying to escape. He's trying Yeah.
And for some reason, she had to go back.
And she let him out there for a second.
Yes, she left the door open and shut automatically.
He was ready to get out of there. He's like, I'm gonna escape. I know it.
Don't blame her, though. Yes, right, it'll be her. Yeah, that's it.